Hey everyone, Amaze the Storyteller here. Like I promised, we're going to be doing this video. I'm going to be talking about how you can achieve Goku's physique. For a lot of you, that would be your dream body type, your dream physique, abs rippling, chest out the wall, arms looking good. But how do you achieve that? What type of training do you have to do? What's your nutrition looking like? I don't know if I've said it on this channel before, but I am a certified nutritionist as well as master trainer through ISSA, which is the International Sports Sciences Association. I almost fucked that one up, but we got it through. So the first thing I recommend, especially if you haven't worked out before, is starting with body weight exercises. And Goku is seen in his training nothing but body weight in the very beginning of Dragon Ball when he's a little kid. You see him doing push-ups and squats with Krillin. You see him running to get his cardio up. All those things are extremely necessary. I would say build yourself up to where you can do 100 reps consistently of these three exercises. The first one is going to be a squat. A simple body weight squat, butt out, knees bent, chest over toes, all of the good stuff. You can Google that if you want to. I'm not going to sit here and break down a squat. That's not what I'm here to do today. And a push-up, all right? The third movement, though, that everyone gets wrong is actually a doorway row. A doorway row, you hold on to the side of the doorway where the trim is and pull yourself in, lower yourself back down. If that's unavailable, you can always do the sides of a pull-up bar at a park and just row using that. Some type of pull exercise, some type of push exercise, and then squats are, of course, king of the lower body. So those three build up your strength to where you can do 100 of those consistently, and then add on sit-ups. Why, do you ask? Well, because sit-ups will take a lot of time to develop anyway. They're very easy to do. Your core strength is probably already there to do 100 of them, so they're not necessary, they're accessory. So you can add them on after you build up those key factors. Now, that alone is not going to get you to a physique like the guy behind me, and don't worry, I'll show you Goku's physique in a second. There's many different ways you can train for this. Now, it's important to remember that training is specific to your goal. So to get like Goku, you have to assess where you're at currently. Goku's very ripped. He has very large amounts of muscle mass. If I had to guess, he'd be 205, 215. I'm not looking at Tagashi's writing or anything like that, but I'm sure it's up there. So to get to around that, you would have to eat a lot, and then you'd have to cut. Just realistically, you would have to eat big to get big. Now, if you're not there, and let's say you're a skinny guy like me, normally, let's say you're skinny, maybe 135, 150, you would have to eat a shit ton in order to get there. Probably around 10,000, 5,000 calories a day, anywhere in between. Like a lot. You would have to eat a lot. And if you're on a time crunch, now it's even more. So it's not realistic to make that jump. What is realistic is around 2 pounds of muscle mass per month by training weekly in strength training. What is strength training? Well, training with some type of resistance, okay? Now, for hypertrophy, there are principles to hypertrophy. I recommend you Google those. Sleep, being in a caloric surplus, maximizing resistance through progressive overload, and there's a few more that you can add on there, but those are going to be the three main principles. And doing those consistently, and time under tension, excuse me, I can't believe I forgot that one. That one's the most important. When you're doing those, you need to make sure that you're not overtraining. Because remember, Goku is built for endurance. My man can fight, and any martial artist will tell you that they spend large amounts of time in cardio. They are running for days, they're boxing for days, they're doing all of the required cardio so that their vestibular system, the balance system, is aware of proprioception, all of these good terms, meaning they know their body awareness. That is super important for the neurological adaptations that will occur for you to weightlift. Believe it or not, you can't just go to the gym and deadlift 400 pounds. It's not possible. First, you have to make sure your balance is on point. Make sure that you're in sync. Make sure that your postural control is there. Like I said before, proprioception, neuroplasticity, all that good stuff. And then you now have the basics down in order to start weight training. But you don't just jump to weight training. There's a process. First, it's body weight. Then it's lifting weights. So don't start lifting weights right away. Build up the foundation properly. Build up your core and lower body strength. Like I said, start off with 100 of those three key movements: pull, push, and squats. Once you can do that for a month consistently, then tack on the sit-ups. Once you have the sit-ups, now you have 4 key body movements that you can always progress to make harder. Okay? Now there's thousands of different progressions for each of the 4 movements I had just mentioned, so I'm not going to get into that today either. But in order to achieve Goku's physique, you have to lay out that foundation. Now that we have that, again, balance, body weight. Those are your 2 main objectives if you want a body like Goku. The third thing you'll have to do is once you move on from body weight, now it's time to hit the gym with excessive weight training. Okay? You're going to have to weight train 3 to 4 times a week. Okay? And you'll have to do organized training splits because you will be at serious risk, like I mentioned before, of overtraining. What is overtraining? It's training to the point that your body's breaking down faster than it's healing. Okay? There's an anabolic and catabolic effect. Again, not going into that. You guys can Google this shit. But what you'll have to do is make sure your program is organized and straightened out to the point where you don't overtrain. This is why training splits exist. So an example of a good training split is push and pull. Everyone loves their push and pull. Push and pull is exactly how it sounds. Bench pressing is a push, bent over rows a pull. Those are great examples both for upper body and then lower body, again, hamstring curl, and then maybe some type of quad extension like a hack squat. Or a normal barbell squat would hit everything. Compound movements are going to get you there faster. What are compound movements? Now be careful doing compound movements on top of doing a training split. Okay? Goku has a lot of muscle on him and a lot of defined muscle that took time to put on his physique. So he trained as a bodybuilder. It's important to keep that in mind because bodybuilding training isn't the same as athletic training. They're 2 different avenues. But you need both of them if you want to be able to perform like Goku and fight like a god. So the first thing you'll have to do is, again, like I mentioned way before, and I'm mentioning again just to hammer in that nail, you'll have to focus on balance routine and body weight routine. Then you can move on to weights. Once you move on to weights, again, 4 times a week, 3 times a week minimum, but you're going to be cutting back on those gains, doing compound lifts such as deadlifts, cleans, bench press, squats. Those should be your main 4. Why cleans? Cleans help your joints and ligaments adapt to exercise, and especially heavy cleans over time. So it helps boost the maximization you get out of the other 3 movements. Deadlifts help you pull more weight all around the body. Really helps with core the most, though. You can think of your trunk as your lower back. All right, we all want to protect our lower back, so don't skip out on deadlifts. A lot of these guys will tell you to. Just don't be an idiot and load up the bar with 5,000 pounds, okay? Do something realistic. Now, when you do these 4 compound lifts, the rep range you want to stick to is about 20 reps. Why do I say that? Because you're a beginner. Your goal should not be hypertrophy. Your goal should be strength so that you build up enough strength to end up building muscle mass later, okay? So you're maximizing time under tension later. Right now, you're focusing on progressive overload. Okay? One of the principles of hypertrophy, you will gain muscle mass from this, but it's not going to be as effective as the way bodybuilders train because that's for later. Trust me, we'll get there. We're getting through it, guys. We're getting through it. And now I know I'm throwing a lot of scientific terms out. I know that it's kind of jimble-jambled because I love talking about this. My mind will go everywhere. But when we're talking about Goku, it's important to mention that he's trained in 10,000 times gravity before. Okay? Maybe even more. I'm not well versed in the Dragon Ball world, but I'm versed enough to talk about it. So when you're training at that large volume of gravity, that is resistance training at its core, okay? The problem is when we look at gravity, gravity affects everything we're moving upwards because we're being pulled towards the center. So anytime a center of gravity is thrown off, all of the muscles that are out of line are going to be affected. This is basic kinesiology for those of you who are versed in the world of fitness. So anything away from the center of gravity is going to be targeted. So that's how he's able to build a physique as fine as his so quickly. Now you and I don't have that luxury. So again, start with the compound lifts. Once you get done with the compound lifts and the body weight training, you're keeping up with all of it, mind you. Once you keep up with all of it, then you can move on to the most important part of getting a dream physique. Because again, you've built up the basics. This is probably going to take you 6 months minimum, possibly to 2 years, 3 years. It depends on how much your body adapts to exercise and building muscle mass. It depends how diligent you are nutritionally, and we'll get into nutrition in a second. It also depends on how susceptible you are to overtraining. It all depends on bone density, genetics, everything plays a role in your body, so you have to know you. I can sit here and tell you the perfect formula, but you have to learn hard work, discipline, and understanding your limitations before you go out there and drive it. My finger snapped. That was crazy. So what I recommend doing after you get done with the compound lifts, focus on recovery all day long. That's going to be the most strenuous part of this whole process, is the recovery. Get your massages, do your posture control, do your breathing control, do yoga. I know a lot of people hate yoga, but do yoga. It's great recovery. And then once you have that consistently going for you, you're doing your compound lifts, you're getting the cardio in. By the way, for cardio, Goku does a shit ton. I recommend for you, just to keep up the bioenergetic pathways, another thing you can Google, basically where energy travels, where it needs to go after you break down muscle tissue. What you'll have to do after that is get about 300 minutes a week per cardio. Now I know some of you just fell down from a heart attack, but 300 minutes of cardio per week is needed for this type of endurance training. So keep that in mind. That's about an hour a day, realistically speaking, of cardio. So you're going to be in the gym for about 2 to 3 hours every single day, except for the weekends, for example. So moving on from the cardio, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of isolation movements, okay? These are what I see people in the gym start out with for some reason. They start out with tricep extensions. They start out with preacher curls. Guys, you haven't built up the necessary foundation. You're jumping the gun, so to speak. You need to go back and make sure that you have perfected your compound lifts and add weight to your compound lifts. And if necessary, develop your training split, as I mentioned way earlier, where you're hitting push and pull. Now you're adding to the push and pull, maybe one exercise per day. An example of this, for me, for example, I really like to do arms and legs, a very weird split that just works for me. It may not work for you, but if I'm doing arms and legs, I'm forgetting a muscle somewhere and I realize it, I'm going to add it in, even if it takes extra time, because again, you're a sculptor for your body. So once you reach the point where you're sculpting your body, you can add exercises in on the 4-day-a-week splits, and that's how you complete that. Don't jump the gun, get into the gym, get tired of deadlifts because they're hard, and start doing hamstring curls. I'm sorry, but you're being a little bitch. You're skipping the most necessary steps and trying to get the results you want, but that's not how you do it. You have to build up the foundation to prevent injury and to gain and maximize muscle growth, okay? So now, the fun part, talking about nutrition. I'm going to display some facts right now that you probably have heard, or maybe you haven't. But protein intake, possibly the hottest topic of any type of muscle growth, is always going to be protein intake. And realistically, it depends how much you're exercising, okay? Baseline is about 1 gram per body weight. That's the rule of thumb. It's actually 0.8 grams per body weight, but that doesn't matter. We're talking about how you can become like Goku. You'll need to achieve, and this is very hard. I don't expect anyone to be able to do it until after a couple years of training minimum. But you'll need to be taking at least 2 times your body weight in protein per day. Because think about how much cardio you're getting, 300 minutes per week. You're working out 4 times a week on top of that strength training. Your body is breaking down so fast that protein can't be synthesized to build it back up fast enough. So you're breaking down tissue constantly. That's why I said you need to focus on recovery. Recovery needs to be a priority. You need to be taking multivitamins so you don't get sick. You also need to be taking calcium for your bones as well as K2 to maximize athletic performance. You'll also need magnesium to help with recovery, as well as every major electrolyte that is just necessary for hydration, okay? But again, with protein, you'll need at least 2 times your body weight in protein. That's what we prescribe to athletic athletes that are doing endurance training, like marathon runners, because it halts the process of muscle breakdown, or what we call atrophy. Another way you can do this is by carbing up with complex carbs. A good example of a complex carb is starches. So your sweet potatoes, your potatoes, those are really beneficial for keeping muscle mass on you. Okay, if complex carbs break down slowly, now you can utilize them as long-term energy while you're working out. So a basic meal should be like 2 sweet potatoes, because remember, you're trying to get up to 215. 2 sweet potatoes, 2 beef patties, that's about 80 grams of protein, and then maybe a protein shake to get you to 120 per meal. Do that 3 to 4 times a day. Now you're maximizing your protein intake. It's going to be very uncomfortable, but it's going to keep and help you generate more muscle mass along the way. Again, your immune system is going to be key, your gut health. You may need a probiotic, you may need antioxidants, maybe you have fermentation because you used to eat a lot of fermented foods like fruits, veggies, that really sit in the gut long term, maybe a lot of processed foods. So you'll need to eat really clean. Goku eats very unclean in the anime, but you are the exception. So you'll have to bulk up while being lean, which is really hard on its own. You can do it, but you'll have to work your ass off. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the whole point of this video. You can't achieve Goku's physique if you don't absolutely work your ass off. Again, I can tell you and teach you how to do it, but ultimately, if you don't follow that guideline and become disciplined on it, you'll never achieve a physique like Goku's. So guys, keep that in mind. Just to recap everything, 2 times your body weight in protein, 4 times a week strength training and compound movements after you've mastered your body weight and balance, and then isolation movements such as tricep extension, preacher curls, chest flies, whatever the accessories are, and now you can achieve a physique like Goku's. And I know, a lot of you are going to be like, damn, that is too much, and I agree. To set your goals, start small, and start building your way up. And don't worry, I promise you, you will get results. It may not be like Goku overnight, but after about a month, 2 months, 3 months, you'll start seeing really wonderful results from this training method. But guys, let me know what you think of this in the comments section. I hope you learned something today. If you want any more information, or maybe you want me to clean up something because my mind was everywhere, leave it in the comments section. I'll happily answer any questions you might have. Until next time, guys, Amaze out. Bye-bye.